I've just heard a report by Sky News, which, if accurate, has cemented my decision to not vote Labour. I'm not a Labour member. I have lots of issues with the government, but I thought, well, they might do some good things, and I thought if it's a choice between Labour and Reform, I'll vote Labour. But what this report amounts to is an utter disgrace. So Sky are reporting that the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is planning to go ahead and approve the Chinese mega embassy in central London. This is unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. Starmer is in South Africa at the moment for the G20 summit there. But when he comes back, I hope the opposition parties, the Conservatives, the Liberal Democrats, Reform, the Greens, I hope they absolutely hammer him over this. Because one of the biggest priorities, arguably the single biggest priority for any government, is national security. There's a lot of other important things, but if you don't get that right, that's a basis for. I mean, if you have a hostile, powerful foreign actor attacking this country, say in a cyber attack, that is a fundamental failure of a government to provide security, and it could get implications in terms of, for example, medical generators, key national infrastructure, potentially lives could be threatened. So I'm extremely angry about this because I'd long been saying that Starmer is soft on China, but this really proves it. Just 2 days before, Sky News was reporting that the government wanted to show that it was taking MI5 concerns seriously. MI5 had been warning that Chinese researchers had been trying to kind of hunt the ground in Parliament to see weaknesses. Now, this had been described. I've just been watching security analysts talk about this. This was 2 days before today's Sky News report. This is not in itself illegal. Embassies do this all the time, sort of try and get traction of what's happening in politics, just to report back in terms of the everyday running of a country, in terms of what the situation is. We do the same thing. That in itself is not illegal. Unusually, though, two individuals have been named. Shirley Chen and the other worker was, I'll just get her name, Amanda Chu. The fact these two women have been named is unusual. So that would be the government saying, "Oh, look, we are taking it seriously. We're naming them. It's meant to be like to kind of warn the Chinese off a bit." Dan Jarvis in Parliament said, "We will not tolerate threats from any outside party," and of course he didn't name China. Frankly, all of that counts for nothing in light of the fact that Starmer is going to approve this mega embassy. Also in light of the fact that Starmer is planning to make a visit to China next year, becoming the first Prime Minister since Theresa May in 2018. So at that point, it will be 8 years since that's happened. But the security concerns have not decreased, they have increased. At a time when British parliamentarians of all parties have been threatened by Beijing, I think this is unforgivable. I made a video recently on diplomacy. I think Starmer's philosophy is diplomacy must always win out. But the key thing about diplomacy, it must also include assertiveness. And I cannot work this out. I cannot work out what Starmer is playing at. How he could be so thoroughly stupid to think that economic gain is worth the price of national security. That is unforgivable. Because that's what they will argue. That's what the government will say. Oh, well, the economic gain from working with China is the key focus. And we do take security. No, you don't. If you're going to allow this mega embassy to go ahead, that is gambling with our national security. When the then Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner was dealing with this, she pressed the Chinese on why some of the plans that they had submitted had been blacked out. Now, what other reason to black those things out? This was like particular rooms at the site, for instance, other than nefarious reasons. If they have nothing to hide, why are they blacking out parts of their plans? This is absolutely unforgivable. So let's say it goes ahead. Then we see a massive cybersecurity attack. They won't do it immediately because they're not stupid, but it will happen in time, perhaps a few months down the line, perhaps even a couple of years down the line, but it will happen. I think there's a strong chance it will happen, I should say. And that will be on Keir Starmer. The Chinese will do it, but they're not our friends. That's, that goes without saying. This is unforgivable. And if Labour is hammered at the next general election, it's all they deserve. Today I was actually going to talk about Nathan Gill being sentenced to 10.5 years, and good. He deserves it. I think all pro-Putin traitors deserve that. Reform's attitude to that has been absolutely vapid. Farage pathetically claims he doesn't know this man. Clearly, that's not true because there's been many photos showing them together. And we're not talking about some random person on the internet. We're talking about a former reform leader in Wales. So that's just their excuses are wear thin. But if reform can be seen as being far too soft on Russia and cannot be trusted in Russia, quite frankly, the same can be applied to Labour and China. And yet here we have a reform person going to jail, rightly so. He deserves every day he's behind bars. He's a traitor. But frankly, what the Prime Minister is doing, I don't say this lightly, it's treacherous. To actually gamble with national security. I am utterly disgusted, and I won't be voting Labour after this. Before this, I thought, well, they might get some things right. I spoke about the announcement about having a men and boys summit, and there may be a few other things they get right. This is just, I think this is unforgivable. Really. Like I say, the Prime Minister is currently at the G20 summit. When he returns, the next PMQ is next Wednesday. Kimmy Badenoch should do her job. She should hammer him. Absolutely push this relentlessly. Ed Davey should do the same thing. Farage, if he had any sense, would do that as well. But, they're hardly in a position to talk given their own stance with Russia. I think that this is just infuriating because it's this philosophy that China's so big and powerful that we better not provoke them. The Tories, I should mention, have also called for China to be included in the enhanced foreign influence scheme. I believe it's known as FIRS. The government has failed to do that. Now, the point about that scheme was primarily with China in mind. And yet the government pathetically have failed to put China on the enhanced level. It absolutely should be. Why is Keir Starmer not listening to the intelligence services? Or why is he only giving them secondary thought? I think what we're seeing is, and how's China going to respond to this? They're going to say, wonderful, we've got a puppet in number 10. We have a weak Prime Minister who will do what we say. That's how they're going to see it. They won't see this as strength. They won't see this as, oh, look, we've got a partner we can work with. They'll see we've got a useful idiot in number 10. I am absolutely furious about this. Let's be clear, we're not talking here about some soft power stuff like Chinese cultural programs or Chinese students in British universities. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a mega embassy, which will be the largest of its kind in Europe. The plans have been blacked out. Why? What are the Chinese hiding? As for their assurances, that counts for exactly nothing. The Chinese Communist Party believes that lies are kind of benevolent if it helps them. They're a pack of thugs. This is a murderous, lying regime. Look at the way they treated Australia. When Australia called for an independent inquiry into COVID, they threatened to destroy the Australian wine industry. The wolf warrior diplomats are nothing but thugs and bullies. And in my view, the way to approach a bully is not to pander to them. It's not to appease them. It's to stand up to them. When is a British government going to realise China is not our friend? When is a British government going to get some backbone? Now, the Tories, the previous Tory governments, were guilty as well of appeasement. But this may be the worst single act that a British government has done in terms of appeasing China, at least since the Cameron Osborne Golden Era overtures back in 2015 when Xi Jinping came to Britain. I mean, what next? Is Starmer going to invite Xi Jinping to this country? I think if that happens, Hopefully there'll be very loud protests, but you know what we'll see? We will then see Chinese national students coming out to support their dictator. Um, I just think it's unforgivable. I mean, as it stands, this is expected to approve. If this is false, then Starmer should put out a statement saying, no, this is not the case at all, I will not approve it. But I don't think Sky would report that if there wasn't some merit to it. And it's just outrageous. You know, politicians from all parties, including Starmer's own party, have expressed their concerns. I call on all Labour MPs. Show some backbone. I call on my Labour MP, Lewis Atkinson. If you happen to be watching this, I spoke to you personally a few times. We get on reasonably well. Please, for the love of God, have some integrity. Speak to your boss. Tell him this is a bad idea. This is absolutely disgraceful. It's a sellout. And I don't care what assurances the government gives or whatever else they do. Because frankly, the rest of it will be window dressing. You cannot give the Chinese much more than approving their mega embassy. No economic growth is worth the price of national security. There may well be some short-term economic gains. And I get it. If you stand up to Beijing, of course they'll retaliate. But frankly, that will show what they are. It will expose them. You know, we have a choice: either appease China and give them what they want, or stand up to them and risk reprisals. I think either way there is a gamble. Either way there is a risk. So it's either take the risk whilst being pushed around, or take the risk whilst at least having the integrity and the patriotism to stand up to them. I would rather go for the latter. I would rather say, okay, we'll take those risks. There'll be some issues with British businesses in China. They will cut off some trade to the UK. They'll issue, erratic nationalistic rants on state TV and all the rest of it. I say let them. I think if it's a choice between that and allowing, just appeasing China, which is frankly what the government seems to be doing. I mean, allowing the embassy to go ahead, it doesn't matter what else they do in terms of, we take security seriously. Look, we're naming these women are low level cogs in a machine. They're not Xi Jinping. They're low level. And yeah, it's good that they're being named, but it's almost like the government saying, well, we're going to do these things to appease domestic criticism, but on the other hand, it's almost like Starmer is saying metaphorically to Xi Jinping, look, Chairman, I need to sound tough, but don't worry, I've got your back. I'm going to approve the embassy. That's what it comes across as, and it is unforgivable. So the Tories and the Liberal Democrats, reform, but like I say, they cannot be trusted in Russia. So frankly, Labour and Reform are as bad as each other when it comes to national security. So the Tories and the Liberal Democrats need to absolutely be hammering this point. In fact, I would say Ed Davey and Kimmy Badenoch should be perhaps having a call right now. They have many policy differences, but this is one area they can agree on. What Labour has done, what this government has done, approving this mega embassy, is an unforgivable gamble of national security. And mark my words, if there is a major cyber attack, it's going to be on Keir Starmer's back. And if Labour is hammered at the next election, it's all they deserve. It's just one thing after another. They are managing to polarise the left. They're not winning over the right. Frankly, this government is polarising everyone. And they've only themselves to blame because they keep making these insanely stupid policies. And I think this, when it comes to national security, is thoroughly stupid. It's hard to comprehend. All I can think of is Starmer is listening to spin doctors who are saying, look, there's huge economic benefits from China, so let's just please them. That's all I can think of. And Starmer has this extremely naive Neville Chamberlain-esque idea: if we just talk, everything will be fine. If we just communicate, if we just have diplomacy. Yes, diplomacy is important, but it must also be matched with assertiveness. What we're seeing with Keir Starmer is diplomacy without assertiveness. That's not sensible. It's reckless. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. But I am genuinely angry about this. I just think it's ignoring the security services. It's gambling with our national security. It's unforgivable. And of course, Beijing will be celebrating. This is wonderful for Xi Jinping and his wolf warrior thugs because they say, oh, great, Britain's a soft touch. Unforgivable. I'll put a link to the Sky News report.